Hello guys, my name is Gavin, and this will be a tutorial on how to toggle your weapons. And in the meantime, we're also going to toggle what bullet is fired. I will be using a little bit of Python, and I'm just going to get started. To start off, let's double-click the A button first to select everything, and hit X and delete. Hit 7 to go in the top view, and let's do spacebar and then add an empty object. This empty object will be a cube object like this, and I'm going to hit S to scale it down just a hair. Now, to start off first, what we're going to do is go into our second layer down here, and it's just this little the second icon like this, and we're going to add a surface sphere like this, and I'm going to convert it to a mesh by doing Alt and C and convert to mesh. Alright, once we have this, let's go from defaults to game logic, and go from Blender render to Blender game, and on our surface sphere, let's add an always sensor, and let's add a Python controller, and actually not a Python controller, my apologies. Let's add an actuator, motion. This motion actuator will be 0.2, actually 0.4, that's a better number, on the positive y-axis, and we're going to connect it like this. Once we have that, I'm going to add a blue material to this cube, like this. And now what I'm going to do is if we hit P, we can see it moves forward like this, and it works. I'm going to hit Shift and D to copy it, and drag it over here, and on this new material, I'm actually going to hit minus on our new cube, and then hit the new button again, and let's make this material red. So we now have a red and a blue sphere next to each other. And we will be using these for our bullets in the game for when we switch our weapons. Right click on the red cube, and rename this to red, and it's a sphere, my apologies. And then do the same for blue. So blue sphere, red sphere. And they both move forward like this. Okay, what we are going to do is go back into our main scene, like this. So click on layer 1, and on our empty object, what we're going to do first is add a keyboard sensor. This keyboard sensor will be a spacebar, well, it will be namespace. And we're going to have the key be spacebar right here. And what we're going to do is have it so that it'll toggle the property. So it's going to change this from assign to toggle. And we haven't added the property yet, but I will in a second. And this game property we're going to add will be a Boolean operator. And let's call this red. So it's going to toggle whether or not we are using the red sphere. So red like this. And let's minimize this. Okay. What we are now going to do is hit this I right here and do game and then show debug properties. And if we hit P, we can see every time we tap that spacebar, the property in the left-hand corner is going to change from true to false. Next, on our empty object, let's add an always sensor. And let's now add a mouse sensor like this. This mouse sensor will be named click, and I will click this tap button right here, and minimize this. Next, let's add a Python controller and connect this to this. And let's add two different edit objects properties. Add object, edit object. On this first one, I'm going to call it red, and that's just going to add a red cube into the game for a time of 100. Okay. This next object, this next actuator will be named blue, and it's going to add the blue object into the game. And let's put the time as 100. Okay. Connect these to this like this. So we've got our click sensor and our blue and red actuators connected to our Python controller. Let's now create a script by doing templates, Python, and then game logic simple. And on our on this object right here, or our Python script, I am just going to rename this as scripts.py, and I'm going to define our click sensor first. So click is going to equal const.sensors click. And AVG can go away for 1 minute. I'll name red is going to equal const actuators red, and blue is going to equal const actuators blue. Okay, once we have these, I'm going to add our Python script like this. I'm going to add a script into our controller. And what we're going to do is have an if statement. So if click.positive, what we are going to do is have if own red is equal to true. So if the red property is true, we're going to do const activates red. Red. And if red is not true, we're going to do const activates blue. So we should see what happens is if I click this button right here, it'll go blue first, and then whenever we toggle, it's going to go in between blue and red, depending on whether or not blue or red is false. Okay. What we're now going to do is actually make an object to represent a gun, I guess. So let's add a cube into our game by doing spacebar and then add a cube. And let's drag this gun behind our empty object. I'm going to hit S and Y to scale it out. Let's go into edit mode like this and click the face select mode and right click on this back face. Hit the E button to extrude it and drag this panel down like this. Now let's go back into object mode. And I'm going to rename this as, let's say, 1. So this will be like our primary gun, I guess. Hit Shift and D to copy it and scale it down just a bit. And make this new gun's name 2. So there's a smaller gun inside of our bigger gun. We are now going to get these objects inside of our script by importing the scene. So scene is going to equal bg.logic.getCurrentScene. And what we're going to do is have 1 is going to equal scene.objects1. Then 2 is going to equal scene.objects2. Okay, once we have this, what we're going to do is just have a generic if statement again. So let's have if on red is equal to true. We're going to have, let's say gun 1 is going to be visible. So 1.setVisible, set visible 1, then 2.setVisible 0. So gun 1 is going to be visible and gun 2 is not. And then if we have an else statement, we're going to have 2.setVisible 1, then 2.setVisible 0. So if red is not true, our gun 2 is going to be active. So to test to make sure this works, I'm going to hit P and I'm going to toggle, actually I'm going to hit Z right here. I'm going to toggle this property, and actually it looks like there might be an error really quick. No, there's not. 1, 2. Oh, my mistake. On our else statement, change the ones back and forth. We were having it so that it was setting gun 2 invisible every time. So we can see it's now going to... Oh. 1 like this. Okay, I keep messing that up. So if our red is true, 1 is going to be visible, and if it's not true, it's going to be invisible. So we should see it's now going to do this. And if we click like this, and we can see it's going to toggle the weapons and the bullet types every time we click. Alright guys, that is how to switch weapons as well as how to switch bullet types in the Blender game engine. I hope you found this useful, and I apologize for that little screw up towards the end.